Welcome to the BBC.
Bring me your balls.
I feel like it was like a bad one night stand.
No, we're like, I'm gonna take on the world.
Lovely Las Vegas, where you can bring a hooker to your room, but you can't bleach an asshole.
Sometimes I bring cats.
Working for Luba is like working for Hitler with tits.
Whoa.
Welcome to the BBC. Yes, we mean the big black, between both cheeks. We have everyone back today, which is so amazing. We've got Becca, we've got the spicy Italian Ashley, and myself, your host, Luba, just Luba, like Cher or Madonna. How are you guys doing?
Ladies.
Hello.
It has been way too long overdue.
Yes, absolutely.
I think
New
it's been
year.
months.
I think so.
Time flies when you're having a good time.
Mm-hmm.
And what a good time Luba has been having.
Oh, let me just say that it has been raining in the desert, and you know what they say? When it rains in the desert, a Florida man cries.
I love that. That is like the greatest saying.
I don't know who said it. I just say people say it, but I fucking love it. I made it up one day because it was raining in the desert, and I was like, oh, someone's like tears from heaven. Someone's looking after me. And I was like, no. Florida man's crying. It like rained for 10 days straight just recently. And I was like, oh, it was
in Vegas.
Yes, it was colder in Vegas than it was here. I just landed. I just got back. It rained every day. It was gloomy and gray. It felt like Vancouver, and it was raining. Like I got Jake to film a video of me like dancing in the rain, spinning in the rain. I'm like, get this before it stops. And it just
raining,
like poured.
Hallelujah, it's raining.
Raining Florida man. Amen. So
I guess that means you have news. Yes.
I do have news. And those of you that follow us on YouTube or subscribe to our YouTube channel, the story has broke. I've been getting sued for the last 2.5 years or longer. It was a very painful, long, exceptionally long experience. But everything has now come to an end. I'm very happy with the outcome of it. It could not have went better. It was an absolute roller coaster. From being called to trial and the judge postponing it the next day, flights, oh yeah, like full on, like going to federal court, getting ready for trial, flights booked, hotels booked, airlines booked, training for, what to expect in federal court and being put on the stand, to the judge being like, okay, no, go try to sort it out yourselves, and canceled it very last minute.
No.
Yeah. And the roller coaster continued. My judge was the same judge that Trump has for the Mar-a-Lago case. So if any of you are Americans or follow American politics, and you've seen Eileen Cannon all over social media, specifically Twitter, she was like, what is it, that trending name or trending for a very long time. She even actually shut down internet in her court cases because she was trending so heavily on Twitter about the Trump case. And during that whole thing going on, she had Trump's case and anal bleach on her docket at the exact same time.
That's hilarious.
I think it means we're a big fish now.
Yeah, right? I remember the lawyer saying to me, like, you need to prepare yourself that when you arrive for court, there will be a frenzy of media there. Like news, like it's going to be a big deal. It'll be very much like almost like paparazzi. And I was like, oh my God, perfect.
So I was going to ask, like, with everything with COVID, and was this in person or was this via internet?
So that's interesting that you ask that, because my deposition was on Zoom. So the part that I guess I didn't talk about that people don't know is, not only was our business shut down because of COVID, right? We had to cancel all the shows. The waxing salons were shut down. I
In
was
2020.
diagnosed 2020. I was diagnosed with triple negative breast cancer, and I got sued.
All within like 3 months.
Like,
Yeah.
talk about when it rains, it pours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I remember, retaining the lawyers, because I don't know anyone in Florida, and we got a referral. I'd never met these guys before. I was very nonchalant. Like, I never came out and said, oh, like, I have cancer and I had chemo. I did chemo for, God, I think that chemo was like 6 hours that day. There was like 2 different types. And the next day I had a 6.5-hour deposition where I was being deposed on Zoom with my chemo cap, no hair, no nothing. And I never stopped anything with the whole process. I remember the lawyers like emailing, and I was like, I'm going to add Jake onto this email because I'm going into surgery. I'm not going to be able to respond. I'm having surgery. So if anything happens, please let us know. So the entire time I went through all of my treatment, the pandemic, and a frivolous lawsuit, in my opinion.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was all, now the federal court for trial was going to be in person.
Okay, so explain this. Why was it federal and not state?
Good question. So it started in state court. His lawyer actually filed in state court. And when we retained our lawyers, they put it into federal court. And their reasoning for that is a state judge has hundreds, maybe if not thousands of claims or lawsuits in front of her to go through, or to, I say her because I'm very pro-female. The judge has like thousands of lawsuits to go through, versus a federal judge might have a few hundred, and they have help. They have like a magistrate that helps them through it. So they thought that that would be more successful to actually get the case really looked at on a deeper level, as opposed to just seeing a huge file and saying, oh, this must be a warranted lawsuit because it's a thick file. So they thought that they would speed it up a little bit and have it more thoroughly reviewed. 2.5 years later.
Yeah.
Wow.
Although, do you think it would have been longer had it stayed in state?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it probably would have been longer. I don't know, that's my opinion. I don't really know anything about law, but I mean, if this was supposed to speed up the process, my God, I couldn't even imagine. Yeah, they could have probably dragged it on forever and ever and ever in state court.
Yeah.
It was very expensive, very expensive. I sold my mom's house in order to pay legal bills.
Wow.
I mortgaged the house in Vegas to try to stay on top of the bills, and I was just trying to get money anywhere I could, just because, like, some months my bills were 10 grand, some months my bills were 60 grand.
Yeah.
In legal fees. Like, it was a very expensive process, and it's not fun, and yeah, I don't recommend it.
So hold on, backpedal for a second. You had to sell your mom's house.
Mm-hmm.
How hard was that?
It was the only time I've been emotional about real estate. I've always
You grew up there too, yes?
Yeah, so this was the second house. It wasn't the house that I grew up in, because I really pushed her when she was alive and she was well. I really pushed her to like have her dream house, which was in a very specific area. She always used to tell me, oh, this is where all the doctors and the dentists live. Like, this is where the rich people are. So then, when I like moved out and I was doing really well, my dad had a little house, and that we had rented out. And I said, sell both of them and buy what you want. And she was like, no, that was your dad's house before I even came to Canada. Like, that needs to go to you. And I was like, I am fine. Sell both and buy what you want. So she bought her dream house I remember like being, early 20s, and I was so proud of her that she finally got to be in Park Royal. That was like the name of it. It was a very big deal. So, and it was, you know what? It's wild. Like I'm a huge believer in alignment and manifestation, because I just woke up one day and I was like, this just needs to be done. Like I have to do this. I don't even know what it was that told me like that was the day. And I remember calling the property manager who was looking after the house for years, because I had rented it after she passed away. And I said, Wayne, we're selling it. And I said, this is how much I want for it. Are you going to play ball? And he said, well, Luba, that price is a little ridiculous. Now, mind you, I'm talking very small towns, so we're not talking a lot of money here. He goes, that price is a little ridiculous, and it's not even comparable to like what's out there. Like you're asking for quite a bit. And I said, listen, like I'd like for it to sell. This is what I want. I don't know. I've just made up a number. This is what I want for it. I don't want to look at any comparables that you want to send over. You're either in, you're out. Like I'm putting it on the market. You're either going to be the agent or you're not. I'd like it to go to you. And he said, okay, reluctantly. He was like, okay. And then I was in Chicago. So the house wasn't even listed for a week. And he was calling me nonstop at the show. And I'm like, I'm in a show. And he's like, you got to call me. You got to call me. And I called him, and it sold for $30,000 above asking, sight unseen.
Wow.
That's nuts.
So that if you
That's the
believe
market right now.
but not only that, I'm going to look at it from a completely different perspective and say, your mom's not here.
Oh,
But I'm a big believer of those who pass are still there looking out for us.
oh my God.
And your mom was your biggest supporter. And this was her way of kind of shining through and being there to hold your hand and help you in one of the toughest times. That's
oh my God.
think.
I completely agree with that. Like I couldn't agree more. Like 1000%. Like not only
I've
just
got
like
tingles right now. Like,
yeah.
yes.
Like not even just like through the cancer, but like this was just a huge, like it took so much stress and pressure off of me of like, that money is there if I can't keep up and try to fight for this.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the other thing. Like she was such a fighter too, right? Like now that I can openly talk about this, I remember talking to some people and they said, I don't know how you did it. Like if I was being sued, I would just be like, done, close the business and move on. They're like, there's no way that I would have fought for 2.5 years and spent that kind of money defending myself. And that wasn't even an option for me.
Yeah.
It was just, I'm getting sued. I need to defend myself. I need to stand my ground. And how do we do this? Like it wasn't even a question at any point for me.
But this just shows your strength, and where there's a will, there's a way.
I learned
and
a
if
lot.
you truly believe in what you're doing, what you're selling, what you're
Yeah.
supporting, no matter what it is, you have to be your biggest advocate. And if you believe, everybody else will follow.
Yeah. And just leading with honesty and integrity. Like that's what I've always said. Like I always came from a place of like, no matter how this ends up, I know that I've never done anything wrong. Like I've always done everything above board. I'm a good person. I can go to bed at night. I can look at myself in the mirror. That's all that fucking matters in the end. That's all that matters. Right? And then usually that shines through. That's your ending.
So spill the tea, lady. What came of this?
What can you say?
God. Well,
just for the listeners listening, this is the second time we've recorded this podcast because the first one we've been advised not to release.
I was talking to Ash, Ash and Becca, as we always do on these podcasts, with a little bit of wine in me, and it was just girl talk. Yeah. It was just very much girl talk, right? So I'm being a little more reserved now. I'm just very happy with the outcome. I'm beyond happy with the outcome. I'm very happy to be able to go to Florida now. It was advised that I should not enter the state of Florida. I was being sued by someone in Florida, someone that I've never met before.
Now, why were
man.
they advising you not to go to Florida? Like business
Don't.
not go, or like even personal, like don't go sit on a beach in Florida?
Yeah, it was just advice because I was being sued in the state of Florida, and because I had like no business dealings in Florida and I had never been to Florida. I went once for like a 4-day business trip when I was with corporate in my early 20s. Like I had no connection with Florida whatsoever. So they were like, it's clean, just keep it that way.
That makes sense.
Right? Just like you just don't want to muddy any waters, right? Like courts and lawyers and lawsuits, it's all just very, and they
Gray.
just gave,
It's very
yeah,
gray. There is
just,
no black and white in law. It's all up to interpretation of the lawyers and the judge that you get.
yeah, it's all a story. Each side tells their story, and who
Who's a better storyteller?
Yes.
at the end of the day, that's it. So that's why I didn't go to Florida until I got the pass or the green card of like, okay, you can now go. Excuse me. And then I went to Florida, and let me tell you, Miami, South Beach was so good to me.
It was
didn't
literally
disappoint.
it was Ash. No, I don't. So you know Luba, right? So you'll know. And for everyone listening, Luba has this like magnet in her skin that just like attracts really amazing, extraordinary things that don't usually happen to regular people. That's Luba, right? On a regular day. In Miami, it was nuts. It was literally like the clouds parted in the skies and the heavens shone down on Luba Sazowski. One of our friends got t-shirts made that said "That's so Luba," just because of how many uncanny things happened in Miami after this lawsuit was resolved or whatever.
Yeah.
It was
Okay. I need something. Give me something.
Something of like that. So Luba, something.
Yes, give me something.
Girl. So I was hanging out in Miami Beach in Sobe, and I turned this bend. I was no makeup. I was wearing a t-shirt that said "Justice for Luba," that Becca had made up. You can check her at our website at brightonup.com for those t-shirts. And I was wearing ripped jeans and Nikes, and I came around a bend and I looked up. It started to downpour, right? So now I look like a drowned rat. I come around this bend, it's like early afternoon, and I'm like, oh, this is pretty. And I'm like, holy shit, this is the Versace mansion. So I went in for a cocktail, and I'm not going to get into it because I can talk about it forever. It was the most incredible experience. I ended up sitting at the bar and drinking with the chef. I'm talking like $250 ounces of tequila, a bottle of Dom. I don't even know what else we were drinking. And then he says to me, like, in very broken English, he's right from Italy. What are you doing tomorrow? You'll be my guest. And I showed up the next day not knowing what to freaking expect. And he had a table for me right for one person, right by the water, or by the pool, sorry. The best table in the house. I had I think it was like a 9 or 12 course meal. Chef came out and presented every single meal to me. At the beginning of it, he was the chef was yapping at the server, and my white dining plate got removed and replaced with a Versace plate. And he said, "Chef will not have you dining on white china. You'll be dining on Versace china tonight." And that was my night. It was completely taken care of.
Wow.
He left. My dessert got presented by the server, and he said, "Chef has left for the evening. There will be no payment required. You are the guest of the chef, and this is his treat to you." And I just sat there. In awe. And I remember thinking to myself, like, my mom used to always come from a place of like, when I was in small town, like, please do not run in the local beauty pageant because you will not win because you are the daughter of a cleaning lady. She goes, the only girls that win are the daughters of doctors and lawyers. And I remember sitting there. First of all, side note, I did win that pageant. Number two, I remember sitting there being like, how's this, Mary? I'm dining at everyone was so confused because the chef was coming out and like just presenting to me and like leaving. So people were coming up to my table and they're like, who are you? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, and I remember like walking home or walking back to my hotel, and I called my girlfriend Katrina and I was like, what the fuck is happening? What the fuck is happening? I got a meeting with the mayor of Miami Beach. I had a meeting. I was asked to be in a symposium at a cancer center. I'm having drinks with the chef of the Versace mansion and dining there as his guest. What the fuck is happening? And she goes, Luba, karma is happening. Like, it was just, so that, that's just, the city was so good to me. My lawyers have now become personal friends, whether they like it or not. I'm going to say they're personal friends. This lawsuit was so emotional and personal, not only for me, but for them as well, because they deal with multi-million, billion-dollar companies. It was so personal to them to have someone attached to it, a name and a face attached to it, where if this, went a different way, it could have completely destroyed me and it would have destroyed my livelihood. And they don't get to see that side. They get to see the big corporation that just writes a check. So when everything was said and done, they actually flew to Vegas from Florida to have a celebratory dinner with us. And that was the first time I ever met them in person.
Wow. So you never actually had to go to court in person?
No.
It got called
at the very last hour, it was called off by the judge.
Wow. That is like, amen. Thank you very much. Justice prevails.
It was wild.
Justice was served.
I drank
at the mansion.
Yeah. I drank champagne for, I think, 2 weeks straight. I remember going in and buying like bottles of Cristal. And I remember the woman checking me out at the end. She's like, this is very expensive. And I was like, oh, you have no idea what expensive is. Attorney bills are very expensive. This is nothing. The restaurant that we went to dinner with the lawyers, they had the martinis at the end, the espresso martinis at the end, come out with anal bleach written on them.
Oh, I love it.
So they loved it too. And what I loved about getting to know them too is I said to them, like, so when did you actually know this lawsuit was over anal bleach? Because I never said the words anal bleach. I said skincare, because why do they need to know what it's for? And the partner, Adam, actually said, I'll never forget. He goes, I was going through your case and I was going through the evidence that was submitted from the other side. And they were photocopies of every page of my website. And I can speak about that because it's public knowledge, because it's federal documents. So the other lawyer had photocopied every single page of the Bryght website and uploaded it for evidence. And Adam was going through it, and there was a blog called Penis Lightning, and it had two like cartoon pictures of like a dark penis and a light penis. And I was like, oh my God, I wrote that blog. And he just went, yeah, you sure did. You did. So they're now referred to as the anal bleach lawyers.
I love it.
I don't think from the meetings and things that we had to do with the judge and what was it, the deposition and mediation and stuff, they never used the words anal bleach that I physically heard them say. But yeah, they're now like the anal bleach lawyers of Miami.
Amazing.
Put that on a business card.
All right. And stay tuned, because I actually did an interview with them.
Yes,
So
it's
we
coming
went
out in February, end of
we
February.
did a full interview where we interviewed them about the case and just like regular like legal questions that people may have about, you know, anything to do with their business. So it's not legal advice, but just me sitting with them and chatting with them. So yeah, this is the stuff that people don't know that goes on in the background.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. So if you're a customer and you're listening, you know, over the last 2 years when we've had stock fulfillment issues, inventory issues, hopefully this gives you a little bit of insight as to why we were struggling so much. But all of that's behind us now. And you can rest assured that Bryght will take care of you going forward.
And I think we did, even when this was, you know, when all this was happening, we took care of them the best that we could with the tools that we had. And, you know, the lawyers were extremely good to work with, and, you know, the relationship with them is incredible. It's been wild. It was a wild ride. Never would I ever would have imagined that I would get sued, number one. Number two, that it would be 2.5 years.
And someone you never met. I think that's very important for people to perk their ears up to.
Yeah, for sure. And like anyone can have a lawsuit at any time.
Yeah.
You know, and I guess the other thing is like, you know, just because you do everything on your end that is above board and legit and everything, you can still get sued. It is very for profit in America.
Yeah. So what advice do you have now that this experience is done and behind you?
Advice for like business owners, or
another small business owner, how they can protect themselves the best they can.
God, I think I feel like I should be able to answer this with no problem, but it just, there's so many variables, right? Like, you know, people that I talk to that they don't even have insurance for their business. Like they're a solopreneur working out of a salon, and they're like, well, I don't need, like, the company that I rent a room from will have insurance for me. Like little things like that. It could be a slip and fall in your business. It could be a service that went wrong and the client is suing you. Like there's, as a small business owner or as a business owner in general, like you're vulnerable to a lawsuit, no matter what you do and how you protect yourself. I guess just educating yourself before you just come up with an idea of I'm going to start a business because it's easy, is doing all of the homework of everything that you need to protect yourself. And find a good lawyer, right? If you're signing a lease, you should have someone look over that lease. If it costs you a couple $100, you should look at that, because what are you signing?
I learned that lesson the hard way. Boy, did I ever.
Okay, so talk about that.
I signed a commercial lease. This was, years ago. This was probably 5-6 years ago. More now. I signed a commercial lease on a property that a hair salon was on the main floor. And so there was already an existing business that had been there for at least a year, maybe more. And I was then signing a lease for the upstairs, which was a commercial lease that I signed for a 3-room spa. So not big, but it was above a hair salon. So there was existing clientele. I loved the girls. And this commercial lease, I can remember I signed it. I moved in. I did everything that I needed to do, got everything set up, bought all the product, you name it, starting from scratch. And the first month I was there, I went and put up a sign, because that's what you do when you move into a new place and you have a business. And I can remember I was told that sign, I got a phone call or a text message that said, that sign better be taken down by end of day tomorrow, or I will show up there and I will remove it for you. And I was like, well, why would I take my sign down? Like I have a business.
Mm,
And they were like, it doesn't have proper zoning yet. So it comes down or you're getting stuck with the bill. And I remember thinking, this is ridiculous. Like, I signed a commercial lease. I didn't sign a residential lease. So
mm,
I could have probably gone back and fought, but I was young
mhm,
and I put every last penny that I had into this business, and I had bills to pay, and I had rent to pay, and I had rent to pay on the space, and I had rent to pay at my house. And I was scared and I was young and I just kind of buckled, and I probably shouldn't have. In hindsight being 2020, I probably should have gone to a lawyer. I probably should have fought a little bit harder. But in the big picture, when I look back, I think everything happens for a reason. And that was, I believe, 2.5 years before COVID. So had I have persevered, had I have gone through the fight and the struggle and hired the lawyer and fought the fight, I probably, yes, would have won, but I would have been out a whole lot of money, and I would have never been able to recoup it and would have had to close my business anyway because I wouldn't have made it through the shutdown. And in
mhm.
Ontario, we were shut down
So, like,
probably twice as long,
Yes.
than
Yeah.
any other province. So I know a lot of businesses that didn't make it, and congratulations to all of the amazing
Mm,
businesses that did manage to persevere. But everything happens for a reason. I'm in a
yeah.
good place now, but lesson learned, I really should have had a lawyer look over that lease because
Yeah.
I
And
had a lot of older men strong arm me that
mhm.
I let take
Ooh.
advantage. And they saw a young girl and thought, you know what, we can push her around, we can take her money, and
Mhm.
it's
You
sad.
know, Ash, with that comment specifically, I feel very similar in the person that chose to sue me. I think that he had no idea who I truly was or who he was fucking dealing with, and that he was just gonna roll over me. And he would serve
Hmm.
me with a cease and desist, and I would just close my business, that I wouldn't retain lawyers, that I wouldn't fight for so long, and that he would just take over that market completely and be done. And I think he underestimated me in
Hmm.
that sense.
It kind of reminds me of the Coke versus Pepsi. It,
That's a great show.
that's what it reminds me of,
Mhm,
because when you're starting out in a market where there's not a lot of other competition, the
mhm,
person who gets there first always feels
mhm,
threatened by everybody else that comes along. But
mhm.
let's be honest, there is room in a market
Absolutely.
for everybody.
Mhm. And that's what I continue to say to my lawyers throughout this lawsuit, is that, like, there's room for both. There really is, and we're the ones that are taking the time to brand and do the shows and do all the legwork, and you know what? When the tide rises, all boats rise with it.
Hmm.
And that's the approach that I was hoping that he would take as well, and he clearly didn't, and had a different idea. But, going back to Becca's question and hearing your story, Ashley, I think, the best advice is that if you are starting a business and struggling with the fact of you don't want to spend the extra $100 or $200 to have a lawyer look over a commercial lease for you, you're not ready to start a business. It's not that easy. It's not as easy as it looks. Get your ducks in a row and get the things that really could affect your business in the long run. I mean, if Ashley wasn't allowed to advertise, how was she supposed to continue to do business? But she's already signed a lease that she's pregnant with. So
Hmm.
spending that little bit of money that seems like a lot at the beginning is so important for the longevity of your business, because it can destroy you in the long run.
100%.
Yeah.
There's two things that everybody should have: a good lawyer and a good therapist.
And a good accountant.
Yes,
And
this is true too.
I got all three. I got all three.
What do they call that? The trifecta.
There we
Yeah.
go.
Oh my
So
God.
if you want more information, please subscribe to our YouTube at Bryght Skincare. You can see everything going down on Instagram at Bryght and Up. Where else can they find us, Becca? Where else can they listen to all this and get all the tea?
Well, since you've listened to this episode, I would say the most important thing for you to do is go to our YouTube. It is under Bryght Skincare, and make sure you're subscribed, because on March 13th, Luba's video with her lawyers comes out, and it's a really good interview to watch. You'll get a lot more insight and some ideas of maybe what you could do for your business. It's not legal advice, but hopefully it will get the juices flowing and you can seek legal counsel. But it's really good, and that comes out on March 13th. And then you can listen to more episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you listen to podcasts, or go to betweenbothcheeks.buzzsprout.com.
And just remember, dance like nobody is watching, but text and email like it'll be read in court one day.
Boom.
Oh, I like that. Drop the mic.